We're going to have our bad days. We're going to have our bad weeks. We're going to have our bad months. We may even have a bad year. It's just how well do you honestly take your feedback, and how well do you look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I own this thing that's going wrong in my career. I own this thing that's going wrong in my day, or whatever it may be. Most people are going to point at somebody else's. It's not my fault. It can't be me. It's everybody else's. It's my circumstances. It's this. It's that. When the reality, it's you. You got to own it. You got to own where you're at. All right, everybody. This is Tony Patino back here for our next Trust Talk episode, and I have the pleasure of talking with two great leaders with us today. So I've got Chaz Kimbrough, our GM for Business Operations, and Mr. Brandon Slayton, our HR Director. So we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about honesty, and honesty is a skill. So got some, we're going to unpack some questions. I'm really excited to talk to both of these gentlemen and hopefully share a little bit of their story with you guys. So first of all, we'll start with Brandon. So you've been here for 10 years, which means you've seen a lot of stuff over the years. And in your definition, what makes honesty a skill rather than a value?
Well, that's a tough question. I think a lot of times people see honesty as, of course, either they are or they're not, right? But I think we're wired as humans for self-preservation or for, short-term rewards. So we're trying to get away from, being rejected or embarrassment or something. And so honesty threatens that. Honesty is a threat to our short-term, rewards, basically. So it really takes intention. It takes making a decision to be honest if you're going to be a person of honesty, and that's like a muscle. It's got to be practiced every day when the stakes are low, and then you can start relying on it later when the stakes are high. Yeah.
And now, Chaz, you've been here for a little bit under a year, right? Almost a year, right? It's coming up on a year here pretty soon. So when you walked in the door at Abacus, what was your honest first read? Yeah, just kind of give us your, what did you see when you first got here?
Yeah, Tony. So I actually came from the trades, the service industry before Abacus. So I've shared this before. I've watched Abacus from the outside, and I, was always intrigued with the company and, the whole white shirt approach to the plumbing and the electrical world. So when I got the opportunity to join the team here, those what I thought and saw from the outside, you guys, it exceeded what I was seeing. The honesty about taking care of the employees, honesty about taking care of the customers. From the day I walked in, from the first interview to the day I was hired, going through the new hire class, you see a lot of videos where you go into a company and they have your laptop and your shirt and your pen and your notepad all sitting there. I've worked for a lot of great companies in my past. I've never experienced that. The Abacus was the first time where I walked in and they actually had everything set up and ready for you to roll out and do your job, from, like I said, from the interview to the new hire class to the first day on the floor. So exceeded my expectations and exceeded from what I saw from the outside looking in.
Yeah. And that's kind of unique perspective, right? Because you were a competitor somewhat, right? You saw us from a different angle than most people do. And not that people aren't competitors and see us, but when you got here and you see some of the back end stuff and all of the work that it takes to put on a new hire, to bring you on as a new hire, and really so it kind of matched your expectations.
Yes, sir. Exceeded them.
Excellent. So operations, man, that's a world where dishonesty has measurable consequences, right? There's fleet issues that they can get hidden. There's there's all these it could be vendor problems. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in the operations, especially on the back end of the business operations side of it. So what actually breaks down when people stop being honest about operational problems?
Well, it's like I look at it behind the scenes operations. It's like a chain. So if any piece of that link isn't doing their part or communicating with somebody else, something's going to break. And at the end of the day, whether you're talking about fleet, which ironically you use the word breakdown, but if we look at fleet as a whole, if we're not maintaining our fleet from the technician telling us that's driving it every day, that something's wrong, there's something simple that can be fixed really quick and inexpensively, turns into a bigger problem and longer delays on getting that truck back into the field. Something on the warehouse side of it, Tony, if we say we have parts, we do our monthly inventory and we say we have all these items in our warehouse, and then when the technicians are needing them in the field and we're like, oh, we don't have it here, all that's going to lose. We're going to lose the honesty from our warehouse employees to our technicians. We're going to lose honesty from the mechanics to the technician, and vice versa on the other side of that as well, which at the end of the day, all that's going to affect the customer. So everything is a domino effect. The technician is our customer when we're looking at the fleet services. The technician is our customer when you're looking at the warehouse parts. So they have to trust that we're going to take care of those trucks. They're going to have to trust that we have parts available when they need them for the customer. And at the end of the day, every piece of that chain has to fulfill their role. Otherwise, the technicians aren't going to believe in us when we tell us their truck's ready to go back on the road, and they're not going to believe us when we tell them that their parts are set in the warehouse. You lose trust.
So So it's interesting that you brought that up around like who's your customer, right? Because your customer is the technician, and well, yeah, that's who your customer is, which is they're in turn, they're the face mechanism for the company to our customers, right? So your approach to them is, hey, making sure that you're building trust with them. Making sure that that's where honesty comes in, and making sure, hey, I've got the part in stock, I've got X, going on in with your vehicle, and we're going to get it back turned around to you in a certain time, so that they build trust with you, just like we want them to build trust with our customers out in the field, right? So you're absolutely right. It is a domino effect, and you're indirectly serving the customers out in the field, by making sure that our internal customers are taken care of in a timely manner, right?
Absolutely. Indirectly, but can directly impact the customer tremendously if we fail on any of those pieces. So I love having our monthly meetings with the warehouse and mechanics, and I continue to stress to them that those technicians are our daily customers. We got to make sure we're taking care of our customers so the technician can take care of the homeowner who's paying the bills at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that everybody really should understand and hear, is that you guys work extremely hard to make sure that these guys, there's less friction out there for those guys to do their job, right? The minimum amount of friction they have, it's easier for them to go out and perform and do what they have to do to take care of customers that are in need, whether it's on the AC side or plumbing side or electrical, any of those essential services that are needed. Again, if their van's not operating, they can't go out and serve those customers. So really critical role. So I'm going to switch over, moving to Brandon real quick. So Brandon, because you oversee our recruiting team, both
All
in
right.
Houston and Austin, right?
Yep.
So when you're in the recruiting process, what are the behavioral signals, if you will, that tell you that the person will be honest? I, I've always, I know there's certain questions, but is there something that you're looking for that that makes it easier for you guys?
Yeah, it's actually consistency through the whole process. Actually, the recruiters are looking for some consistency. If for me personally, as a recruiter, I'm starting at the job, their resume, right? What they turn in for the job. But I'm looking for gaps or holes. I'm asking questions. I'm trying to figure out if what they put in there is just to to fill gaps, or if they're lying to you in the resume. And it's pretty easy to tell when you actually start the conversation. But I'm also paying close attention to how they're answering things in the interview. A lot, that's why they have those questions in there about, what are your greatest strengths? What are your greatest weaknesses? Just to see if they can be a little vulnerable. You don't want to hear stuff about their greatest weakness being that they care too much or something. Because I mean, come on, we know that's not the case. And if you're not the kind of person that can that has really observed in yourself what your weakness is. If you don't know your weakness, then that's a red flag too, right? So ultimately, we're looking for the candidates' consistency in the entire process. That includes if they show up on time, right? Or if they call ahead of time to tell you that they're not going to be on time, right? Or if they're being, diligent about following up with you with certain things. So there's consistency throughout the whole process that if they start to miss a few things, you have to start to question about whether this person is honest or at the same time if they're going to be diligent, right?
Yeah, I think so. If I'm hacking that a little bit, right? So the consistency with, and interviewing is a skill, right? Would you say like interviewing, you get better and better the more you do, the more people you interview. And I would imagine at this point in your career, you've interviewed thousands of people, and you get better and better. But I think the consistency part of doing it and looking for those those honest those those triggers that create honesty, gets easier and easier for you, right?
It does. Actually, I was talking to the recruiters the other day. I have this way of asking just about, how much money they want to make, right? So I first asked how much in terms of what the range they're looking for. Like how much are you looking for? What's the range? And then how much are you making currently? a lot of times they may, oh, I want to make 100,000. Well, okay, well, what are you currently making? Well, I'm making 50. Like, well, what, hold on a second. We'll talk about that big gap, right? So a lot of times it's, the way I ask questions, and it's just over, 20 some odd years of practice, it kind of brings out the honesty in them and, or brings out the truth, I would say, um, and kind of forces some honesty onto the table. But yeah, it's a skill. It's definitely something that you have to be intentional about for many years before it becomes second nature.
Got it. So Brian, you oversee our onboarding for both Houston and Austin with our recruiting teams and HR teams. What's the honest conversation you want Abacus to have with every new hire? And that's every new hire. What do they need to hear or have that kind of within the first 90 days?
Well, I think that one of the things that every new hire needs to know is we're not perfect as a company. They come in, we put our best foot forward, we give them a tour, we take them to lunch. The managers take them to lunch. We do a lot of stuff up front. Our recruiters are excellent about trying to put the best foot forward for the company and to a certain degree sell the company and with the what it's like to work for the company. But then they get here and they may have, they may not get a quick answer from their manager, right? Or something may fall through the cracks or something may happen here. And it's really important in our orientation process that we do tell them this is not perfect, that we're going to make some mistakes and you're going to make some mistakes. And we want you to realize that the heart of the business is to uh, is to train you and to develop a long-term relationship with you. And we want the same commitment from you. But yeah, that's what we try to tell new hires. That's what I would tell every new hire is we're not perfect. We are, I call it bumper bowling, that your manager is going to give you a lot of instruction probably in the first 90 days, because we don't want you going in the gutter with, throwing the ball in the gutter. So we like bumper bowling. We try to keep you in the lanes, and that just takes a little bit of correction here or there. And a lot of times that causes some frustration in the first 90 days. But if we set them up right in terms of the conversation, it usually goes pretty smoothly.
Now, pivoting back over to Chaz here. So Chaz, you came in as a general manager, relatively new to the team. How do you model honesty as a leader before your team fully trusts you?
Yeah, so trust, it takes time, right? It's not something that's given. When your actions, speak a lot of words, and then follow through with what you say. So actions is just something as simple as, if I have a standard of keeping the warehouse clean and tidy, and our employees are watching us every day when we walk through the building, and I walk through the building and step over a piece of trash versus stopping and picking that up. I might not be speaking directly to somebody, but I just said a whole lot to my whole team, my whole team, and I can be in front of them talking about keeping the place clean and keep it tidy and organized for safety and to find things quickly. But then if my actions don't follow through on that, something as simple as picking up trash instead of stepping over it, then I lose that trust very, very fast. And then it's very hard to get back. So I think it's very important. It's something as simple as a phone call, an email, or a text, timely response, and quick follow through is actions that will over a period of time gain trust. But it's as the old saying goes, don't just talk the talk, make sure you walk the walk. So make sure you follow through with what you're saying, and don't leave people waiting for a response if they're reaching out to you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that's probably the hardest thing for all leaders and myself included. I think it's just making sure that you carve out time, and again, as your responsibilities grow and you got more and more on your plate, it's being intentional with your time and making sure that you've got time to do some of those those if you say, hey, I'm gonna follow up with it so and so, is that you have time carved out in your schedule to do those follow-ups, because all those little things build trust and they also erode trust, right?
I
It's
agree.
it's trust is one of those, is the thing I tell people all the time. It's the hardest thing to get in any kind of relationship is trust. But it's also the easiest thing that goes away, right? When you it's one little, and with some people it's over time, but in a work relationship, it's you can lose it really quickly by just not doing some of the things. Just we're a company that's built on honesty, integrity, teamwork, and respect. It's doing the things that we say we're going to do when we're going to do it. Though that's how this company's built. It's how we continue to operate, and it's why we've been successful for 23 years plus. Is just doing those little things when no one's looking. That's the integrity part of our job, right? And I've always believed as a leader, to exactly what you just said. It's I can't ask someone's to sweep up the floors and I'm just walking over trash, right? Or I can't ask people to, hey, why did you just leave your shirt, I mean, your, excuse me, your water bottle on the table and after the meeting, why don't you just pick up your trash and throw it away if I don't do the same thing? So it's just, you inspect what you expect. And as a leader, that says more than anything else is that, hey, I'm not any different than the next person that I'm asking you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Right. So it goes a long way. So quick, just really quickly, Jess. So give me a story from here or from your past where someone being honest about a problem changed the outcome. What was at stake and what did that honest conversation actually prevent?
Absolutely. I'm going to take go back several years to a previous employer. I just took over, just was promoted to the New Mexico market, and was a new manager, like literally new manager and tenure and everything. So there was a lot of morale issues there. And the previous leader, I had a mentor there, or mentor actually, and he taught me a lesson that I still use today, Tony. And it is a slow yes is going to hurt you more than a quick no. And at first, as a new manager, I had to have several conversations with him to grasp that. But what was happening in that market when I took over out there is something as simple as a vacation request. They put it in. I want the vacation request turned in 2 months in advance, but I don't give an answer to the week before. Our employees waiting. They have a family, they have a personal life outside, so you can lose that very quick, and it creates morale issues if you don't just sit down, take time, as you just were saying a few minutes ago, sit down with your employees and understand what the request is. If you know the answer is no, don't wait to share that information. Be honest and upfront with them immediately, because dragging it out isn't going to help any. So what happened in that market was simply a leader that was failing to give his people truthful, quick responses. And I was grateful to have a mentor there that had tons of experience in the HR department that was able to help me walk through that. And it built trust as a group there, tore down some silos and some walls between different departments. But just sitting down with our employees and having conversations, we started doing what's called a city hall meeting once a month, similar to what Abacus does here as far as the monthly employee meetings. And that communication and that trust just continue to turn around from there forward. So coming here and seeing the all employee meetings and the tech meetings weekly and then the monthly part is exciting, because I have the flashbacks to when I went to a place that didn't have that, and I got to see for a temporary period of time how the trust was lost from that leadership there.
Yeah, and it goes quick, right? It's just I remember back during COVID, and we couldn't have, we had a break from our normal cadence of meetings, and we all of a sudden learned about this thing called Teams, and we had to start doing remote meetings, and we could no longer do in person meetings, and like today we do monthly all tech meetings. Well, during pre-COVID, we were doing all tech meetings every Thursday. Every Thursday was an all tech meeting, and so to break, so it's you realize how quickly things can kind of get away from you if you're not in front of folks and you're not being consistent with that, with those meetings and kind of talking to people. So things can really get out of whack really quickly. So Brandon, so in HR, man, you're often in the room for some of the most difficult, honest conversations that go on in this building. So what have you learned about how leaders handle or avoid honesty when the stakes are really high for them?
So you're right. I'm in most, if not almost all of those conversations as they're taking place. So I would say, just to give, from my perspective, I would say a good 80% of the leaders that I've worked with are trying to avoid agitating the person, and so they end up beating around the bush and creating some gray area in the conversation cases. But I would say a good 5% get it right, where they take a long-term approach to, a building or cultivating approach to the person, and then they just try to be direct. As we've heard it said, as a friend of mine likes to say, clarity is kindness, right? So when you sit down, be clear. Be clear about what you expect. Be clear about what happened, and be clear about what you want to see to happen, in the future. And I think that's the best approach.
Got it, man. That's good stuff. So, Brandon, also, if you could install one habit or practice across all of Abacus, Houston, Austin, to make honesty more consistent as an everyday skill, what would that be?
In terms of habits across I would say building in our leaders or in everybody really a cultivating mindset, right? I say that because I think that once you start to see things as long term, as building or edifying or building up somebody or the team or the group or the company, once you start seeing all of this as a long term process, honesty is kind of a side effect of that, right? Honesty and being honest about what you're seeing and what's happening is a side effect of trying to build something great. I think that if we develop a growth and a building mindset in our managers, honesty would just come second nature. There's there's no reason to, I mean, if you don't care about something, you're not committed to something, you can lie easily, right? You can lie to your spouse. If you don't want to keep them, by all means, lie, lie to the people near you, right? And you won't have friends or loved ones for too long, right? But ultimately, if you're trying to build something long term, honesty, I think, flows from that automatically. That's what I think is a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's great insight because it's again, if you're in a long term, if you as a leader, if you're saying, hey, I'm not here for I'm looking at this as a long term I'm going to be here for a long, for a while, right? This is the company I want to be at. This is the department I'm leading people. And why would I not be honest with my people, right? Why would I not tell you the truth? You may not like what I'm going to tell you, or I'm not trying to, be ugly about it, but I'm going to tell you whatever's, what I can tell you. If I don't have an answer, I don't have an answer. Or, hey, this is the way we're going because this is what's right for the business, and let's talk through that. I think but that's I think a lot of times people sometimes avoid those tough conversations, and it just, to Chaz's earlier point, it doesn't go anywhere. Like it's just going to continue to fester in the background, and you ultimately, now you've just been putting it off, and putting it off, and yet the problem is still existing. So learned a long time ago, you just got to address those things heads on, and you have those honest, open conversations and say, listen, hey, this isn't what we all agreed upon. This isn't aligned with our core values or our mission or whatever's going wrong. And people, they generally respond positively, because they either didn't know that that was happening, or they didn't, either had blinders on, or whatever that looked like. So I think it's a matter of just kind of, kind of, kind of being consistent with it, and then addressing those things head on.
Right. No, I think it's definitely huge to think of these things as long term, and then all of a sudden your honesty becomes constructive. You're absolutely correct.
So Chaz, got a question for you, and then just, kind of, I'll put you on a spot here. So you came in new, right? So you walked in new. What's one honest, constructive observation about where Abacus can get better at practicing honesty? Something that from your perspective, that lets you see.
Yep, that's a great question, Tony. Boy, as Brandon alluded to earlier, we're all humans, right? Mistakes are going to happen. It's how quick we respond to those things and how we respond. Man, the one thing I see, I trying to be transparent and honest, Tony. We just got to keep the line at where Abacus started 23 years ago, and that standard of our technicians, that standard of our mechanics, that standard of our warehouse employees. I know I'm not answering your question directly, but man, we're doing so many things right. It's really being new to the company. I'm going to reverse this question back to you and say, I'm still learning so much about Abacus. I don't have something to say that, Tony, we need to change this or fix that at this moment. And I could sit here and think of something superficial, but I don't really have an answer to that question.
No, and that's probably as good of an answer as you possibly could give on a question like that. I'll help give my perspective. I've been here. Brandon's been here a little bit longer than me. He's celebrating 10 years this month, and I'm about 9.5 years in. And I will tell you, the one thing that we, in every company, every organization, does a lot of good things, right? Everybody does really good things, but how consistent can you be? How consistent? When I look at departments that do really, really well, right? And I look at other organizations within Wrench Group or other organizations inside the industry that do really, really well, and you sometimes you see like this big wave, right? It goes up and goes down, goes up and it goes down, and it's just like, it's okay. So they just have a lucky year, or they have a lucky stretch, or but when you're consistent, it never really gets really high, and it never really gets really low. It just kind of stays very, very consistent. And I think that's the one thing I challenge everybody to get to as an as for us is, we're going to have our bad days. We're going to have our bad weeks. We're going to have our bad months. We may even have a bad year. It's just how well do you honestly take your feedback, and how well do you look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I own this thing that's going wrong in my career. I own this thing that's going wrong in my day, or whatever it may be. Most people deflect. Most people are going to point at somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. It can't be me. It's everybody else's fault. It's my circumstances. It's this, it's that. When the reality, it's you. You got to own it. You got to own where you're at first. And so my constructive observation for us all is to get consistent. Get consistent. And consistency doesn't mean perfection. It just means showing up and getting that 1% better than you were yesterday. Is improving on what you've established, learning from your mistakes, and more importantly than anything else is admitting when you have made a mistake, right? And saying, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong with this, or I handled this incorrectly. How do I get better? That's when you start growing as a leader. That's when you start growing as a person, is when you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I did not do well because I didn't do well. I didn't show up consistently, or I didn't do this correctly. And then what am I going to do about it, right? What are the actions that I'm going to do to get better? Because if you don't have action behind it, then you're just going to stay at that level and wonder why you not got better. Why you've never gotten better, right? So,
And absolutely, Tony. And I will just, as you were talking, that I was thinking through that process, and that question is, we just can't stay stagnant, right? We've got to keep growing and keep moving. And like you said, stop and look at, each one of us have to stop and look in the mirror and be accountable for how we help Abacus grow and keep moving.
got it. So I've got the same question. I got a few questions left here, and I really want to this is more for both of you guys. I'm going to ask both of you the same question. So Brandon, 10 years in, Chaz, you're right under a year. From each of your seat, what does Abacus do best when it comes to practicing honesty as a company?
I'll take this first. I think from the very beginning of the company there was a genuine want to see people grow, and I think that we still have that. To be honest with you, I think that we still have this genuine, authentic desire to build people and to love on people, and I think that really comes across. I think that the authenticity of that, it really, even though we have processes, we have procedures, we have scalable processes, we've grown, we've moved sites and all kinds of stuff. But I think in all of our processes and our core values and our mission statement is still true. This is about the customer. It's about the people. And if those two things are working in tandem, then the company is going to benefit from that. And there's an honesty a raw honesty that comes from that, right? And I think people get the sense of that authenticity. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Tony, I'll jump in on to answer. Kind of every day we're taking care of customers, so our customers are trusting us. We have walking in as a new employee in less than a year with the company is we take care of our employees. We do all the little stuff right for the employees so that they can go home and take care of their families. And the company invests tremendously in those employees. I had the first opportunity to go out and do the crawfish boil, and to see the group of employees out there with their spouses, with their kids. It's something that I honestly go home and tell my family how great Abacus is and the organization at Abacus. It's just as a whole, the honesty of care and the outreach to the community. So we as a company invest in our employees, and our employees are able to turn around and take care of our customers. It's pretty awesome to see, Tony. So I get a little choked up, but going to the different company events, I've been to two of them now, and
Right.
it's just amazing to see all of our employees and our technicians, the office employees, and just coming together as a big group. And I know that you want to tie it back to honesty, but we honestly take care of our employees. Our employees are honestly taking care of our customers. Makes full circle.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chaz and Brandon. I appreciate the insight there on, and it's two different perspectives. One from someone who's been here for 10 years and seen a lot and seen a lot of growth and a lot of transition, a lot of change, and one that's coming in from the outside, relatively new, but with a different set of eyes on stuff. And I would, just to add on to what both of you guys have said, I think, what's what do we do best? I think the best thing we do is the leadership has a servant mentality, right? And it starts with, working with Alan for all of the years that I worked with Alan, and his fingerprints is still all over this organization. is that, he was a servant leader. He led from the front, and he, that mindset, and that, hey, early in the early days, Alan would be out delivering water heaters, or he'd be out leading the people. And so I think it just, it just became natural for you to be here, that you had to have that kind of in you. And if you didn't, this probably wasn't the place for you. And those people found other homes, and they got repurposed somewhere else. But those that are here and have been here for the amount of time all have that DNA of being a servant leader. And I think that, because when you serve others, before yourself, you're putting the people first, and that they will then in turn take care of the customers, which ultimately takes care of the company, right? So I think that's the secret. There's no secret sauce that we have. It's just, I tell people, it's the people, it's us, and it starts with. But you got to have leaders that park their ego in the parking lot and leave it in the parking lot, and don't bring it in the building, and say, hey, I'm here to help you, because if I help you enough get where you want to get to, you're going to help me get to where I want to get to, right? So
Absolutely.
again, kind of same format, both of you guys. So where is the biggest opportunity? Two-part question. And then second part is, where are we leaving honesty on the table?
I think our biggest opportunity is with the frontline leadership. We just rolled out CARE, right? Communicate, advocate, respect, and engage. And that's the bottom line. How we want managers to approach our employees, right? And that is to care, right? And but I think that the frontline leadership, you know, I'm not saying they're not. They do a phenomenal job of taking care of technicians every day, advocating for technicians every day. But maybe some more training or abilities around that in their one-to-one conversations. Because in a lot of my conversations that I've seen with the frontline leadership talking to employees, they don't want to hurt their feelings, right? And they end up beating around the bush, as I was talking about earlier. They create a little bit of a gray area. And so I think I think I think we need to train the leadership a little bit on how to approach a conversation with clarity, right? With just providing clarity and being honest. And they're going to get pushback. Nobody likes being honest. It really it's abrasive, right? But I think if we train the managers to overcome that, and that takes it's almost like role playing. Nobody's to do role playing, but it does get you past that fear of getting pushed back or argument, right? And I think that it's important that the managers get past that, and just be honest with their people in a cultivating way, in a way that builds their people up. But I think that's the biggest opportunity, so they can really get to the bottom of helping our guys and taking care of our guys.
Thank you, Brandon. That's phenomenal insight.
And I will just continue off of what Brandon says. When you look at the opportunity, there's we have a lot of stuff we invest in. People, our fleet. Our fleet is 3.8, not even 4 years old on an average number of trucks between 312 vehicles in Austin and Houston. So as a company, we have a lot of stuff we invest in. And back to Brandon's point is, I use the word bench strength, and developing our bench strength in each trade is, I think, a huge opportunity we have in Abacus. We've got great leaders, great tenure, just some continued coaching in their roles, and as opportunities present themselves within our organization, to make sure we have those next candidates prepared and trained and ready to fulfill those roles if when they come available. So Brandon, just kind of going back off of what you were saying, is just that investment in our frontline leaderships. We invest a lot in our technicians and helping them get their, we have a great HVAC training room. We have great electrical boards and plumbing boards that I've seen throughout the facility that I've seen used to get the apprentices coming in and getting them some knowledge and stuff, and getting them their licenses and certifications to get them in the field. I think the frontline leadership, we have an opportunity there to continue building on that bench strength.
Yeah, and my perspective on that question, and maybe just some insight from where I see it, is, where's our biggest opportunity? It's the ability to have open and honest dialogue with each other. I think a lot of times, people dance around. There's certain things that, for whatever reason, and there's different reasons, and just people aren't comfortable with conflict sometimes, or they just don't want to, upset somebody else, and it's really, it's just understanding how each person is, right? We do a good job. Brandon does a great job with the predictive index scores and understanding where, what each person's kind of, which way they like to be communicated with or not be communicated with. So I think it's, as a leadership team or as all individuals, it's just being honest with each other, right? It's just going up to somebody and just saying, hey, this is, and not being offended by it. It's just saying, oh, okay, I get it. Let me ask some questions. Let me clarify what I'm hearing so I can understand how to properly answer your question or concern or whatever it may be, so that we can get better. I think everybody goes in with the mindset of getting better. We address problems, right? Instead of taking the defensive approach and saying, well, why are you picking at me? Or why, it's not my fault. It's not this, it's not that. I don't really take offense to, as much as things, I always look at it as a learning opportunity. If something didn't go right, it's not, oh man, we failed. Yeah, we didn't achieve our goal, but failure is not missing the mark. Failure is not getting up and trying again, right? So I'm going to just try to take it as saying, hey, okay, it's a learning opportunity. We're not going to make that mistake again. Let's pivot. Let's figure out how to do it better, and let's go out and do it better, right? So I think that's really the one thing I would say for all of us. Our biggest opportunity is just having open conversations with each other and being able to grow from those positions, those opportunities. All right. So to close up, last question of the day, and so I want each of you to finish this sentence. If I could teach every Abacus team member one honest truth about building real trust, it would be. So Brandon, I'll go to you first.
That's yeah. So if I could teach everyone one honest truth, I would. I think it goes back to well, it's kind of a two-parter, but you know, I think it goes back to care. As a mentor of mine once told me, people don't know how much or care how much you know until they know how much you care, which means that they're not going to trust you until they know your intentions, right? And if you are authentic, right, as a person, if you know yourself and you know who you are, and you know, sometimes it takes time and leadership, sometimes it takes wisdom and growth and maturity, but ultimately as you get that authenticity as a person, you're a little bit more open for the people around you to show them that you care, why you care. You don't want somebody just to walk up and say, "Hey, you look like you've gained weight," right? It's like, well, thanks. What the heck do you care about? What does it matter with it? But if someone comes up and says, "Hey, you're not, you don't, you're looking really sluggish lately. What's wrong? Are you okay?" And they kind of have a conversation with you about, and then they tell you the struggles they've been through. Then you know, all of a sudden it's a good conversation to have, right? And you start to trust why they're telling you these things. And I think that, so I think that really it is about, your intentions, that if you care about the person, the company, the long-term goals, like we talked at the very start of this conversation, if this is a long-term commitment for you, then trust comes pretty easily after that. They're here to build me up, right? They're here to help me, and not the other way around.
I love it.
Yeah, so Tony, I would just jump in and I would say if I could teach every Abacus team member one truth about building real trust, is always be honest and transparent. I mean, kind of going back to this whole conversation we're having today, is honesty always wins. There's a care approach on how it's said, as Brandon was just alluding to, but honesty and transparent. Don't get caught up in gossip and rumors. If you hear something, go to the appropriate person. Don't spread that, but always be honest and transparent.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to probably weigh on this one as well, because I think this is the episode that I'm deeply passionate about, because building trust starts with being honest, and you can't have trust without honesty. And I think, the thing I would probably add on, and I think it's kind of goes in line with what both of you have already said. Brandon said authenticity. I just would tell everybody to be you, be real, be who you are. And I think don't try to be somebody you're not. Don't try to be, another leader or another person or something you saw on, just be you, be authentically you, and be comfortable in who you are. And I think when you're you and you're real, that just creates being authentic. That just creates being real with somebody. That is the best form of honesty that you can do. Is like, hey, this is me. This is who I am. I have my flaws. I'm aware of my flaws, and I'm working to get better at those flaws. And, but that's how people grow and they build, you can say, hey, he's not perfect, or he's not this, and everybody's going to make a mistake and own it. Just when you make a mistake, is raise your hand and say, I screwed up. I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. Or hindsight's always going to be 2020. I could have done things a little bit differently and better. And that's how you grow as a person and as a leader and as an organization. I think if we all did that, we all would be better from it, and we would have more meaningful conversations, more meaningful dialogue, and we all move to get better, right? And I think at the end of the day, I think my message to everybody is when I say get 1% better, it's just doing the difficult things on yourself and working on yourself to get better so that you can get other people better, right? I can't get anyone better if I'm not better myself, right? So I think those are the things that I would encourage everyone to do. So listen, guys, it's already time's flown by and it's gone. And we've had a great conversation about honesty and learned a little bit about and how you guys use it in your day to day. And it's a very interesting perspective. Chaz being relatively new in a leadership, not in leadership, but new into Abacus, and Brandon's perspective from his seat at over 10 years with the organization. Very good insight. I appreciate everyone, both of y'all's time today, and look forward to doing this again.
Thanks for having.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tony. Thank you,
sir.
Brandon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank y'all. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.